Yesterday we had the Tainis Yudzayin B'Tammuz. In the Mishnah in Maseches Tainis, it is mentioned for 5 reasons we fast on Yudzayin B'Tammuz. The first, because on Yudzayin B'Tammuz the first luchas were broken. The second, because Menashe put a tzelem in the Heichal. The third, because the Tomid, Ashachar, Tomid Shel Benu Aboyim, stopped being brought on that date. The fourth, Apostumus, Soraf Apostumus is a Torah. The Torah was burnt on that day by Apostumus. And the fifth, because the walls of Yerushalayim were broken down on that day. So I had a question. The first reason we quoted, because the luchas were broken on Yudzayin B'Tammuz, why don't we mention the Egel? Yudzayin was also the date when the Yidden did the Egel. So why don't we quote it also? Cheto Egel. Why don't we mention the Cheto Egel? And in the next one of the next slichas, we do mention the Egel. But just by the way, we say Va'al Regel or Egel Aluches Yitzouni. Because of the Egel, the Luches went out of me. In other words, we lost the Luches because of the Cheto Egel, but we do not lament on the Egel itself. We lament on the fact that through the Egel, Aluches Yitzouni, the Luches went out of us. First Luches, we lost the first Luches. So the question is that the Egel itself is a big tragedy, besides the fact that we lost the Luches. So why don't we mention the Egel? So then I recalled what Chazal said. Viter HaKadosh Baruch Hu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu was ready to forgive the Klal Yisrael. Al Gilu Yaroyes, Shvichus Domim Avodah Zorah. We know the first Beis HaMikdash was destroyed because of the Shloisha Aveires. Gilu Yaroyes, Shvichus Domim Avodah Zorah. HaKadosh Baruch Hu was ready to forgive that. Not to forgive, but to forgo. To let it pass. But he could not forgo the Oben Bitul Torah. If the Yidden would have gone on learning Torah, although they were doing Gilui Harosh Avodah Zorah, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu would have left them a respite. He wouldn't have destroyed the Beis HaMikdash. He would have waited a bit longer. Maybe the Yidden will do tshuva. Because of learning Torah. There is another Ma'amah. Alvayo isi ozru, HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, if only they had forsaken me, that I had kept the Torah, because the light which is in the Torah would have brought them back to the tshuva. So maybe I thought that is the way to answer the question. We don't mention the Cheto Egel, we mentioned rather the Shviras HaLuches, because Shviras HaLuches is a bechina, is a concept of Bitul Torah. We lost that kind of Torah which we were meant to receive, if not the Cheto Egel. So that's why we lament on the fact that we lost this Torah. Because Viter HaKadosh Baruch Hu, al Gilui Yarosh was Avodah Zarah v'lo vitir alo ben bitul Torah. Because bitul Torah, to lose Torah, is for HaKadosh Baruch Hu a worse tragedy than to do even Avodah Zarah, Gilui Yarosh v'don. So that's what I thought we could answer the question with. But something is wrong here. Why? Because we have to ask another question. If, like Chazal said, HaKadosh Baruch Hu was ready to forgo the Sholesh Averos, if the Yidden would have gone on learning Torah, because the Torah has got a power, the light of the Torah makes the Yidden do tshuva, so why then did Moshe Rabbeinu break the luchos? When he saw that the Yidden had done the Egel, why did he smash the luchos? On the contrary, he should have given them those luchos, because with the luchos, with the Torah, with that Torah, Yidden would do tshuva on the Cheta Egel. So why did he break the luchos? You'll say that Moshe Rabbeinu did the wrong thing because he was angry on the Yidden? No. Chazal say, although he did it on his own accord, but the Rebbeinu Shel Olam agreed with him, and he said to him, Yeshar koichacho sheshibarto es haluchos. I give you a shar koyach that you broke the luchos. You did the right thing to break the luchos. So we see that it was done with the approbation of the Rebbeinu Shel Olam. So the question is again the question. The question comes back again. Well, why then? Why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu confirm that you did the right thing? Moshe Rabbeinu did the right thing. We have to understand this. And the answer is the difference between the first luchos and the second luchos were that the first luchos, HaKadosh Baruch Hu made them completely his own work. That is the base on which the Aseret HaDibros were written. The tables themselves were made by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and the writing also, of course, was written by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The second luchos, only the writing was from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The base was made by Moshe Rabbeinu. Pesol lecho shnei luchos karishonim v'chosavti al haluchos. I will write on them, but you have to cut them. You have to make them. And what is the difference between the two? The difference, it's written, it's written that the difference is the first luchos, the first Torah with the Yidden received before the Egel, or they should have received before the Egel if they wouldn't have done the Egel, those luchos were in such a way, the Torah was so heilig, was so holy, that it would have been studied without much effort. We would have just learned once the Torah, and it would be never forgotten. We wouldn't have to revise it and revise it again 100 times and once in order to remember the Torah. It would have been studied without any effort. A bit like the Torah which we learn in Olam Haba. That is done without effort. The concept of learning Torah with an effort is only after the Chet Egel. The second luchos, which were half the Ma'aseh Yodov Shel Moshe, the base, and half Ma'aseh Yodov Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the writing. So they've got a cheson, they have got something lacking in them, that if a person doesn't put all his effort in order to study the Torah, in order to remember what he learned, then he won't get Torah. On that we say, Odom ki yomus ba'ohel, a man who dies in the tent. Chazal say, it refers to a person who wants to learn Torah in the tent, in the Beis HaMedrash. He won't be able to learn Torah unless at sheyomis es atzmoi, until he kills his bad midas, he kills his atzlus, he gets rid of his taivus, he gets rid of his gaive, then he can acquire Torah. That is said on the second luchos, but not on the first. The same as we learned about Adam Harishon, after he was thrown of the Gan Eden, he had eaten from the Eitz Hadas, HaKadosh Baruch Hu forbade him to go back to the Gan Eden, Pen yishlach yodo ve'ochal gam me'etz ha'chayim v'chay lo oilom. Lest he will go back to Gan Eden and he will eat from the Eitz ha'chayim, which is the Torah, and he'll live forever. The Rebbeinu Shalom did not want that Adam Harishon should have access to Torah of Gan Eden, to that kind of Torah which we study in Gan Eden without effort, without necessity of breaking oneself on it, of sacrificing oneself on it, of getting rid of the bad midas we have on it. That is the Torah of Gan Eden, Eitz HaChaim B'Soich HaGon. Adam Harishon, after he had eaten from the Eitz Hadas, was not able to have access to this Torah, because then it would be detrimental to him, as we explained once in the Shir, that with the Yetzer Hara he had in him, he needs a Torah which is acquired with nisyonis, with difficulties, with the test, and so on. And the same applies for the Yidden at the time of the Egel. Before they did the Egel, they were in the Madrega of Gan Eden. They were in the Madrega of the Harishon Kedem Achet. Therefore, they were able to receive the luchos of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which were the work, complete work of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And those luchos correspond to the Eitz HaChaim B'Soich HaGon, to the Torah which is learned in Gan Eden. But after they done the Egel, the same as Adam Harishon, after he ate from the Eitz Hadas, the same the Yidden also fell back down again to the Madrega of Acharachet. And then you need a second sort of Torah, a second luchos, a Torah which is only learned with Yegiyah, with Amal, with great labor, with sacrifice, by breaking one's bad midas. And that's what Chazal meant when they said, Al vayo isi ozru toiros ishomoru, shamoer shebo machziron lemutov. If only that forsaken me, but not the Torah, because if they would have gone on learning Torah, the Mo'er, the light of the Torah, would have brought them back to the Tshuva. We refer to the light of the Torah which comes out through the labor of a person. The light of the Torah doesn't come out on its own. That's why we find people like Bialik, for example, who learned in Valozhin Torah, and afterwards, and nevertheless, the Torah he learned didn't make him do Tshuva. It was a fire. Bialik was a fire. He didn't keep the mitzvahs. Why? But he was learning Torah. So why didn't the Torah bring him to the Tshuva? The answer is, he was learning Torah for Geschmack. And the story goes that once he was somebody found him on Shabbos studying Gemara in Shabbos with a cigarette in his head. So he asked him, how can you study Torah with a cigarette on Shabbos? He said, I learn Gemara for Geschmack. It's a Geschmack to him. Someone who learns Torah for Geschmack, he wants to learn Torah like the Torah of Gan Eden. You know, with this Yetzer Hara, of course the Torah want to help him to do Tshuva. That we need a learning of Torah, Odom ki yamus ba'oher. That kind of Torah. And now with this, we understand why Moshe Rabbeinu had to smash the luchos. And the Rebbeinu Shalom told him, Yishach kochacha, Yishach koyach, that you bought the luchos. Because those first luchos, now that they had done the egel, won't be helpful to them. On the contrary, they can even be bad for them. Same as HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, Adam Harishon cannot go back to Gan Eden at that time after he has eaten from the Eitz Hadas, because that kind of Torah is detrimental to him. But with this second part, which we just explained, we have destroyed our answer for the first question. What was the answer we wanted to give for Yudzayin B'Tammuz? Why do we quote the Shviras HaLuchos and not the Chet HaEgel? We said because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is more upset that the Yidden forsake the Torah and they lose the Torah. This is the biggest tragedy than doing Avodah Zarah. that's the answer to the question. But now, this answer goes away. It's not valid anymore. Why? Because, why do we say that HaKadosh Baruch Hu found that it was harder for him to destroy it? It was, the reason to destroy Beis HaMikdash was not for Avodah Zarah, but for the Bitul Torah. Because Amoer Shebo Maziron Lemuter, because the light of the Torah will bring them back to the Tshuva, and we just explained now that the light of the Torah is only when a person studies Torah with the Luchas Hashniyas, with the second Luchas. But that's not the case why we make a fast on Yud Zayin B'Tammuz. We make the fast on Yud Zayin B'Tammuz for the first Luchas, not for the second Luchas. The second Luchas were not broken. We make the fast of Tammuz for the first Luchas. And the first Luchas were broken. That was a Torah for the Yidden. So we can't connect it with Alvai Yoisi Ozu V'Teirosi Shemor Shemor Shebo Machziron Lemuter. That for HaKadosh Baruch Hu it's much harder for him that if we are mevatel Torah, this is worse than if we do the Avodah Zarah. That doesn't apply for the first Luchas. Because the first Luchas, we can't say on the first Luchas at that time, Amor Shebo Machziron Lemuter. On the contrary, it was a Torah for the Yidden to break the Luchas. So why then do we fast for the Shviras HaLuchas? We should fast for the Egel, not for the Luchas. So we have to say a different answer. First, we are mourning the fact that through our sin of Egel, the Madrege we lost. We were before the Egel with Nasev and Yishma. We climbed up to such a Madrege of to be able to receive a Torah of Gan Eden. In other words, to go back to the Madrege of Adam Rishon Kodim Hachet and to have access to this Torah Etz Chaim B'Soich Hagon, which is represented in the first Luchos. And now, because we have done the Egel, we bemoan, we fast, or misabel for the Shviras HaLuchas, that we lost that wonderful Madrege, that we're not able anymore to have access to those Luchas because of the Chet HaEgel. The same as on Tisha B'Av, we lament on the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. We don't lament on the Chorban HaRochni, that means the avoidness that brought the Chorban Beis HaMikdash. We lament on the Chorban Beis HaMikdash itself. The same also, we don't lament on the Egel, on Yud Zayin B'Tammuz. We lament on the Shviras HaLuchas, that we lost this wonderful Madrege. And so also on Tisha B'Av, we cry for the Madrege of Shechina, the Beis HaMikdash, which we lost because of sin, of the sin of Sinas Chinun. Of course, it's no use just to lament, to cry, and not to do anything about it. First, we have to lament on the Luchas. First, we have to lament on the Chorban by Beis HaMikdash. But while we lament on the loss of those Madreges we had previously, we have to do something about it. The purpose of lamenting is in order to provoke a motivation to do tshuva. And do tshuva is on the Egel. Do tshuva is on Gilui Harish Avodah Zarah. Do tshuva is on Sinas Chinun. Through lamenting on the loss of that Madrege, that will provoke in us a cheshbon hanefesh to mend the oven, the sin which caused the Chorban Beis HaMikdash. Otherwise, if a person like yesterday we fasted, yes? And what else did we do? Did we do some kind of cheshbon hanefesh to think, like we said in the Haftorah yesterday in Shul, Yazov Rosh Darkoi, Vishoven Machavoisov, everyone should abandon his bad ways and his bad thoughts. Or rather, we felt towards the end of the Tainis, Baruch Hashem, soon I'll be able to eat again. And then we're back to normal. Back to normal. That's all what we think in the Tainis. I've got this hunger, this headache, this schwachkeit. And the mouth is so dry. If only I could drink water. We are only waiting for the end of the tinies to come. And then we'll be able to be back normal, a normal person, because in times like this mensch. Back to normal. That's all what we think. To be able to function normally. Back to normal. There is no back to normal. If a person wants to go back to normal, he has not done teshuvah. And if a person doesn't do teshuvah, steht in Rambam, Mishnah Berurah, he took the secondary thing and he left the main thing. As the Navi says, a tinies is not meant just to punish oneself and to pain oneself without food. The purpose of a tinies is to change one's actions, to improve one's actions. Otherwise, it is not a tinies. It is not a tinies, says one. That's not called a tinies. It's like someone who went and swam in an ice-frozen lake. And after that, he caught pneumonia. So the doctor tells him, what have you done to catch pneumonia? He says, I went and swam in a frozen lake. He said, Meshigenu, what I asked you to do such a thing? So he gives him antibiotics. Good. Gets cured. And the doctor warns him, and don't do it again. And he, the stupid fool, what does he do? Next time, he swims again. And all the pain he had, and he was crying. It's pain. My chest hurts me, doctor. Do something for me. It hurts. But his hurting didn't give him a lesson not to go and swim in the frozen lake again. And next time he goes and does it again. And so we are. We cry in the Churban Beis HaMikdash. We cry on the Shviras Haluches. We fast. We're mitzayer ourselves. It's a great Zach to be mitzayer oneself for the Churban Beis HaMikdash. But what do you do about it? And after the tinies, we go back again to our old ways. We are like that stupid person who cries and cries because it hurts his chest, because he has got pneumonia. And then next time he does it again. So what's the help to cry? Now there's a second question we have to ask. I always had this problem. And not yesterday, the day before, it was on Sunday, Rabbi Yehuda Marmonstein was in the Sem, and he told me what is the right way to go about it. Since the second Beis HaMikdash was destroyed for sinas chinam, for baseless hatred. And the first Beis HaMikdash was destroyed for Gilui HaRoyes, Shilus Dovim Avodah. So, on what do we have to do tshuva us? We are in Golus. Our Golus Edom, has been brought because of the second Beis HaMikdash, the destruction of the second Beis HaMikdash. Yeah? On the first Beis HaMikdash, Yidden had done teshuva in Babel already. And that's why they came back after 70 years. So now we are in Golus because of the Oven of Sinas Chinam. So what is the right way to go about it? Is it that we have to do tshuva only on Sinas Chinam, nothing else? And if we do tshuva on Sinas Chinam, everything will be okay, Mashiach will come. We don't have to do tshuva on anything else. Or, of course it's illogical. It doesn't mean that we don't have to do tshuva on other things. It means we have to do tshuva on everything, plus on Sinas Chinam as well. And this is more logical to say, because how can we say that? You can close your eyes and nothing matters. You don't have to do tshuva on anything else. Chazal say if the Yidden would have kept one Shabbos or two Shabboses, already Moshiach would come. So we see very well that tshuva to bring Moshiach is not on Sinas Chinam. It is on Shabbos. And if you say if Yid never are doing Gilui Arish for the Avodah Zarah even now, I mean, so what? What will it help to do tshuva and sinas chinam and not on Gilui Arish for the Avodah Zarah, because this itself also is enough to destroy the Beis Hamikdash. So here we have got a little problem. That's what he was asking me. And I also had this problem previously, years ago, on what do we have to look, to concentrate on our tshuva in this time of the year, because of tshuva on the whole of Beis Hamikdash. I told him this, in a poshuter way. If a person does teshuva on sinas chinam, he will do tshuva on everything else, automatically. Why? Because remember the story of Hillel with the ger. You remember? When the ger came to Hillel, and he said, Lamdeni Torah al regel achas. Teach me Torah the time it takes for you to teach me Torah when I stand on one foot. That's one explanation. There's another explanation, al regel achas, on the one yesod on which the Torah stands. And Hillel told him that, don't do something which you don't want people to do against you. This is the whole Torah, and the rest, it's only commentaries. It's only explanations how you can fulfill this command. So there is no question, no problem now. You do tshuva on sinas chinam. Once you do tshuva on sinas chinam, you've got the whole Torah. And the rest is commentaries, like Hillel said to the ger. Do tshuva on the Yesod, on this regel achas shel Torah, and memele all the rest will come. The Bemes, it goes further than that. It's not as poshut as this. Why sinas chinam is something which includes everything else. First we have to ask a question. How is it possible that those people of the second Beis Hamikdash, the Gemara says, show you oiskim b'Torah u'begemilus chasodim. In other words, they were frum people, not just frum people. They were bnei Torah. They were people who were learning Torah very well. Show you oiskim b'Torah u'begemilus chasodim. How is it possible such great people should have sinas chinam? Hatred, and hatred for nothing, not just tama hatred. Hatred for nothing. How is it possible? After all, lo sisno esachicho bilvavecho is as much an aveira doraisa like lo soichal nevelu treife. Yeah. So if those people were asking about Torah, especially they were asking in Gebilus Chesed. Gebilus Chesed. Can you imagine someone who is doing Gebilus Chesed? Someone who is always going to see the sick and prepares food for the people who are sick, and so on and so on and so on and so on. Is lending money to people who need to borrow money. Can you imagine such a person who hates people? I can't. It goes against all what he stands for. He's always saying, how can he have hatred against people? This is a question which has to be asked in the Gemara, when we learn the Gemara. And another question, the Gemara says, why is it so that for the first destruction of the Beis Hamikdash, which was called for the Gimel Aveiros, it was relatively easy to do tshuva. It was enough to send them in Golus in Babel for 70 years, and they had done a tshuva shleim, more than 3 Aveiros. And that's why HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave an end to the Golus Babel after 70 years. But this Golus Edom, the Gemara says, there is no end fixed. There is no limit. The limit is when Yid will do tshuva on Sinas Chinam. And why does it take so long to do tshuva on Sinas Chinam? The Gemara says because Sinas Chinam is such a sin which people don't think they have. They have it and they don't recognize it. Understand? If a person does at least he knows he has done something wrong. You understand? He cannot deny it. So at least once he suffers for it, he goes into Galus, then he knows exactly what's wrong with him, and he sets to work Al Naros Bovel, Shom Yoshavnu, Gam Bochinu, there we sat, and we cried, and we remembered Zion, and we realized what we had done. And they did the tshuva, and they went back from Bovel. But Sinas Chinam is such an avere, that with all the golas, with all the tzores, and still we do not recognize that we have it in us. This is the kunz. This is a terrible thing about Sinas Chinam. But the question is, why is it so bad? Why is Sinas Chinam such a chet that we do not recognize? I always say in this Tekufah of the year, I ask people who listen to me, I say, each one of us, and I include myself, if someone would ask us a question, do I have hatred against someone here in town, Manchester? Is there someone in town that I hate? Do I have sin? No. No. No with the capital letters. N-O. No. Each one of us feels like that. I have no hatred against him. So what does it mean? So where is it? Where is the virus? Where does it hide itself? Here there lies a very deep thing. There is a Rabbeinu Yoine, and that will give us an insight what Chazal meant, Sinas Chinam. There is a Rabbeinu Yoine in Sha'at Shlishi, Simen Kuf Samach. He says the following. He speaks about Kat Oivei Hashem, the group of the enemies of Hashem, those who hate Hashem, who are the enemies of Hashem, Chas v'Sholem. Chazal say, Kat Oivei Hashem, the enemies of Hashem, Ein lohem chelek lo ilo mabo. They have no chelek to ilo mabo. And Rabbi Yoina explains the obvious, who are the Kat Oivei Hashem, the people who throw away the Torah, or Mevazeh Talmidei Chachomim, against religion, Yiddishkeit in general, they are Oivei Hashem. Good. And then he goes on and says something extraordinary, he says. He says, Leformim, sometimes you can find people who belong to this group of the enemies of Hashem, and they are tzaddikim, shoimrin Torah u'mitzvos, and they learn Torah, and yet, after analysis, you will realize that they are the enemies of Hashem. How? When they see another tzaddik who is greater, someone who is oisek in Torah and Gemilus Chasadim better than himself, it will hurt him, and he won't be happy for the kavod of the other tzaddik. This tzaddik who hurts because of the success of the other tzaddik belongs to the group of the enemies of Hashem. Why? So he's like a soldier who sees another soldier who saved the life of the king, and it hurts him because he would have liked he should be the one to save the life of the king. It means he puts his own honor above the welfare of the king. So he doesn't love the king. So he's an enemy of the king. So the same, says Rabbeinu Yoine, a tzaddik who hurts because he sees another tzaddik has got more success. He does better Zikuy Rabin. He learns better. He writes Sforim. He does more chesed than him. And it hurts him because the other one has got more success in his Avodas Hashem, in his Yiddishkeit. It hurts him. In other words, he's jealous. But not a kinas soifrim tarbe chokmah, but a rekev atzumis kina, like the kina of Cain. That person belongs to the group of the Oivei Hashem. So in other words, there is a concept of hatred which comes from Davke, from Torah Gemilus Chasod. Davke because they are great. There is a competition. There's a spirit of competition which allows a person to hate another tzaddik who is better than him. And this is called hating Hashem. And he's not only hating Hashem, he's hating the tzaddik as well. So this is sinas chinom. This is an insight in the kind of sinas chinom the people of the sect Beis HaMikdash have. And that's why that kind of hatred is very hard to detect. Because it is all buried under this competition, under the fact that this brand, the brand of Torah, the brand of the love of mitzvahs, makes us forget how to deal with the people around us. As we spoke already in the last year, sometimes we want the monopoly of the mitzvahs. And we say, no, only us, we are allowed. Us three, we have the monopoly to do a certain mitzvah. You, we don't allow you. And by doing so, they push away and they tread upon other people's feeling. And this is very hard to detect because you don't see it as an aveira. You see that you are so keen on wanting to do mitzvahs, and you think you can do it better. And the other person is only an hindrance, for example. So this is one way to understand why sinas chinom is so hard to detect. Because it closes itself under a mantle of tzidkus. There is another way, which also is similar as this. A person who is very full, when he sees a person who is metuken b'midas, who has got a fine character, is a very honest person. He never tells lies, never cheats. And when he's confronted with another yid, who is not the same as he is, he will find it abhorrent, the behavior of the other yid, because he sees the other yid is a liar, a cheater. Or other midas roes like these. The more a person is elevated, the more he's elevated in Torah, in Diktuk Hadinim, in Tikkun HaMidas, and the more he's in the danger of being repelled and finding disgusting to deal with another yid who doesn't have the same midas tova as he is. And be'emes, you could quote a pasuk on that. Oy have Hashem sinu ra. Those who love Hashem, they hate evil. So it's normal. I see a mechalel Shabbos. I see a yid in the street who smokes. I find it abhorrent. What's happening in Eretz Yisrael today with the clashes in Bar Ilan, for example? Because for me, Yidden find it abhorrent. They can't bear seeing Chilul Shabbos Bevares yet. So they express their anger. But in doing so, there's a big danger. Why? Because the Torah says, Ki tire chamoyer sona'acho, roivetz tachas masoi, azov ta'azov. When you see the donkey of your enemy, who is falling under its charge, under its burden, you have to rush to help your enemy. And which enemy do we talk about? We speak about the enemy which the Torah says you have a mitzvah to hate. Someone you have reprimanded on Chilul Shabbos, for example, in a nice way, in private, gently, and he has not accepted your reprimand. It's a mitzvah lisno oisoi. That's why the Torah says, Kitire chamoyer sonacho. And yet the Torah demands of us to rush and help him. And the Talmud Monkula says, Azov ta'azov, you have to abandon your feelings of hatred on him. Azov ta'azov madabilibo chalei, you have to forget all what you think against him and go and help him. How is that? The Gemara says, because lachufes yitro odif. To subdue your Yetzer Hara is more important than your kanos. What Yetzer Hara? But I do it l'shem shomayim. The answer is like this. Like Beruria said. You remember Beruria, the wife of Rabbi Meir? Once Rabbi Meir wanted to curse the Rishoyim who were doing him trouble. So he said, no, don't curse them. Don't curse them. Rather, daven that they should do tshuva. From where do you know? He says, it's written in a pasuk in Tehillim. Itamu chatoim min haaretz u'reshoim odeinom. And the sins should disappear from the surface of the earth. And then there will be no more reshoim. So you see, David HaMelech was not asking the reshoim should disappear. The sins should disappear. In other words, you have to daven that their behavior should change. And the same way the Torah says, it's a mitzvah to hate the reshoim. It means their behavior. It doesn't mean the reshoim as people. You see a Roshe who is in tzar. We need help. Help! Because as a person, he needs help. But I have the mitzvah to hate him. Not to hate him. I have a mitzvah to hate his behavior. Or have Hashem sinu ro. Doesn't say, or have Hashem sinu rosho. It says, or have Hashem sinu ro. Hate the evil. Don't hate the person. But this to divide between the behavior and the person is something which is practically impossible to be sure of. How do I know when I hate a Rosh? How can I guarantee to myself I hate his behavior and not him? That's something nearly impossible to achieve. And that's why the Torah says, since you are in the doubt, so always do la chumre, always try to help the Rosh. Don't repulse him. Don't be nasty with him. Daven that he should do tshuva. Try to be mekarev him. Try to help him. Because if you go with harshness, with nastiness, with denigration, with haughtiness, how do you know that you are behaving like this for his behavior? Maybe you have contaminated it. You have infected him also with your hatred. How can you divide between the behavior and the person? And maybe that is sinas chinam. And that kind of sinas chinam also is something which is very hard to detect, of course. Because I say, this person is a mitzvah to hate, because he's a Rosh. But that's not the norm, because whom do we have contact with that we see is a Rosh, or we have... Do we really think sometimes in the day, yes, I hate that person, but you know, I hate him because he's a Rosh. It's not very current, this kind of thing. And that's why I would say rather, the first explanation, that we do have jealousy with people around us. Every day, Kimat. We go and daven in shul, and we see that people are more honored than us. Some people are daven in front, in the Mizrach. Some people are being called the Sefer Torah. Some people have got their names in the newspapers, are famous. And kine, jealousy, is leider, is something very, very shchiach, very current. Now there is another thing also, which we would say also is similar to that. That is the relationship between people. Although we live together, you notice that we are not very familiar with each other. We keep our distance. We've got neighbors, for example. Right? How many times a day do we talk with our neighbors over the fence? Do we really love our neighbors? Are we really friendly with them? Do we have a smile? How do we greet people of our family? And how do we greet our guests? Shabbos, we see people in the street coming out of shul. How do we tell them Good Shabbos? Do we say Good Shabbos to every one of them? And how do we say it? So, we can say that Venice, we have a certain kind of achdus here in town. But up to where does it go? Is it ve'ohavta l'reacho kamoicho really? Is it a love which is mamish like yourself? Do we feel that every Yid here in town is like a brother, like a sister, mamish? Like the Orach Chaim HaKadosh says, Lo sisno esochicho bilvovecho. Why doesn't the Torah say, Lo sisno reyacho komoicho? Lo sisno reyacho. Why does the Torah here use esochicho? Lo sisno esochicho. And then the Orach Chaim asks the question, why doesn't it say Lo sisno bilvovecho esochicho? Al pidikduk, says the Orach Chaim, it should have said this way, Lo sisno bilvovecho esochicho. Don't hate in your heart your brother. Not don't hate your brother in your heart. And the Orach Chaim answers, it is to teach you the measure of hatred. How do you measure it? You measure it like he is your brother, another Yid. Think as if he's your brother. Would you behave like this with your brother? How do you behave when you see your brother? How do you behave with your brother? When you have not seen your brother for a year time, for example, and then you meet with your brother, how do you meet? Or with your sister. And when you see another Yid, how do you meet? Shalom Aleichem. Kalt. That is the measure, says Orach Chaim, which is lacking in Ahavas Yisrael. And this lacking in Ahavas Yisrael, we call it Lo sisno es ochicho bilvovecho. That's why the Torah expresses the word es ochicho in between to teach us this is the measure how much. Now, after that, there's nothing to say. Then we have to agree, yes,